Hi everybody, it's Mark here. I'm just coming on today to compare three decks. I recently got this deck. It's been around since 2005. Huge box. Comes with a big book. This is the original vintage version. And I got it secondhand for $15, so it was quite a deal. And I wanted it about 7 years ago, and then somehow I got distracted by other decks, and you know how that goes. And I actually ended up getting, so the artwork is by Will Worthington, and I ended up, instead of taking this deck, I ended up getting his other deck, which is the Wildwood Tarot. And there were just some strange cards in there, even though I love the artwork. Like they changed the, I believe it was the Hanged Man into the Mirror, and it was this serpent lady with a mirror. I don't know how it would relate to the Hangman. Anyway, there was a couple of head scratchers like that, so as much as I love the artwork, I got rid of the deck. But then I remembered he did the artwork for this, and no strange cards. So it's the Druid Craft Tarot, and so that got me thinking, do I have other decks that are Druid-y or Wiccan-y or Pagan-y? And it turns out I do. I had two others because, like I say, I don't have the Wildwood anymore. That would have been considered pagan and Celtic along those lines as well. So the first deck that I got that was more in the pagan category, according to the description, is this deck. Then the next deck I got, and I got these maybe 7 years ago, was the Tarot of the Old Path, which is more of a Wiccan kind of a deck, and as I say, this is more Druid. So there is overlay between all those systems, Druids, Wiccans, and Pagans. Don't ask me where, how, and why, and for any of the details, but and I'm not really in any of those categories. I don't identify as any of those categories. But I do find them interesting and appealing, and I didn't expect to have three decks sort of in that culture, but now I do, and I thought today I would just look at the majors and compare them to each other. So here is the Spellcaster's Tarot Fool, pretty typical Fool. The Druid Craft, also fairly typical, although he is holding mistletoe, which is very important in the tradition of the Druids. I believe it brings fertility, energy, life, that type of thing. You'll see as we go through the cards that Will Worthington's artwork is the most superior of the three. And then in Tarot of the Old Path, we have a very busy scene with the Fool, with a lot going on. Baby into the fire, mother chasing the baby. But it is interesting that we've still got the Fool with his knapsack over his shoulder and similar clothing in all three of the versions. Okay, so the Magician in the Spellcasters looks more like a wizard to me. I don't really get the pagan stuff other than, of course, the ruins here. This feels more authentic to the Wiccan or pagan vibe. Maybe those standing stones is what this is a nod to. Yeah. And then this one is more like an RWS magician, but of course the artwork is so phenomenal. I have a feeling this hen is about to be sacrificed in some magical way. And now he's standing among the standing stones. So that definitely, for whatever reason, is something they consider magician-y, I guess. I'm looking at these, I'm comparing these for the first time with you, so things will just occur to me as we go along. Here's a pretty creepy high priestess from the spellcasters, and then the old path gives us a much more lovely and inviting and almost Snow White with all of the animal appeal vibe. Animals are very important to all three of these traditions, so we'll see them over and over. Here's a fantastic high priestess, and her little kitty cat is in the background. So whenever they get a cat in a card, I'm happy. Empress, spellcasters. She is actually the green of the green earth. I guess that's what the idea is there. Green seems to always be her color, and it's the same right across the board here. I like that they have this little fertility symbol in the card down here. It's like a statue. Okay. Pretty intense Emperor card. That's just, you know, it's the Aries card, so let's just give him a ram's head and be done with it. This is the spellcasters has got a lot of creepy looking cards. I like the Tarot of the Old Path's Emperor because you can see with the children playing in the background, he is a protector and not just a sort of dominator of culture. And here we have a classic, I guess, Druid Emperor type. They do rename the cards. The Empress was the lady, this is the Lord. That's in terms of the Druid tradition, and apparently the artist did his work and is a Druid, modern day, and researched the clothing. So I think this is probably the more, not just the most beautiful, but the most authentic of the three decks. More creepiness with the Hierophant and the spellcasters. High Priest, very nice, in the Old Path, and a really great High Priest in the Druid craft. Lovers, okay, now we're getting a vibe of paganism with the cloaking and the hand clasping. This one sort of falls back on the more Adam and Eve vibe, which I'm surprised for a Wiccan tarot, but I guess it's maybe it's more of an angel from their culture. Flowers, very important. Flowers in this deck are very important. They're in the card for a reason, and I had to get the book sold separately to find out what that reasoning was. And here's a beautiful lover's card with Bambi looking on. And you'll see in this deck that mistletoe runs through a lot of the cards, so it must be a very important plant to the Druid. Okay, this one just sort of goes off the rails in terms of the chariot, nothing to do with any of those traditions. Same here, but I really like it because it's the four elements represented as the horses. And here we have what I believe is a female charioteer, which you don't see very often. This strength card from the spellcasters looks like the lust card from the Thoth versus riding the lion, so there must be a nod to that. Same here, they've used the same kind of Thothy lion vibe. And here, appropriately, they've replaced it with a wild boar, as there would not be a lion accessible in Ireland at the time. Classic hermit, I don't think we see anything special in terms of the tradition of paganism there. Beautiful hermit here. Inside his cloak, he has all these nature goodies happening in the winter time. But you cannot beat the coloration of this beautiful hermit card. Okay, Wheel of Fortune. I guess it's a nod to the 4 seasons here. This is a very medieval vibe. Wheel of Fortune, the whole story being played out in the center. And here the Druid lady is drawing the Wheel of the Year. And it'll be in 8 parts for the 8 pagan festivals. And she's using this little compass, so to speak, with 8 parts as a guide as she draws. Here we have Justice. Maybe that's a connection to the Wheel of Fortune above her head, because Karma seems to work with both of the cards. The wheel brings you the karma that you created, and perhaps this is where you create it. Oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, and here we have a male Justice card. I don't know if the robes are classic to the tradition of Wiccan, but again, the bird would mean something. I would have to look it up. Very classic Justice card. As I've said before, Justice is the most boring card for me in any tarot deck. You really have to do something different to catch my eye. And speaking of different, a pretty torturous hanged man in the, what's the other one? Spellcasters. But interesting, because the card actually is upside down. There's the tree branches up there and the roots down there, but they present the card with the titling down here just to make you turn the card around, I guess. We have kind of a jester vibe in this one. There's some of that throughout the deck. And here, oh, I have to cover up naughty bits, is the Hanged Man. And I haven't read the book yet. I'm just starting it, but I'm wondering the oak leaves in his mouth and what that's got to do with anything. And here we have mistletoe. It's a parasitic plant that can grow on an oak tree, and oak trees are huge in the Druid tradition. It might even be in the name Druid as a translation. Okay, death, nothing other than the usual Grim Reaper as we know it. Same here. Again, we have a lot of card title change. The clothes, I like it. They have the baby. We see the full transition. I think the reason this one is so Wiccan or Pagan or Druidy is because it takes place mostly outdoors. They all seem to take place mostly outdoors, so I guess that is that whole nature thing with all 3 of those traditions. And here we have more of a witch vibe with the death card. All I can see is the Wicked Witch of the West going, fly, fly, with these birds flying off under a spell of some sort. Then we have pretty typical temperance card here. This one is very different. It's called the Guide, and someone is bringing their partner to be restored in these waters. There's angels overlooking. There's the Lord and the Lady overlooking. Kind of a complex card, but it gives you lots to work with and sort of fun to play with. And I always think of the temperance card as kind of where we're trying to get healing, like you're trying to get the right medicine mixed up, that kind of thing. And here we have a renamed Ferult for the same vibe, and this does look very much like they're mixing up some kind of a potion. And it's interesting is the light to the dark of the death card that we just saw. Very intense and creepy and gruesome devil here. This one's more interesting because it's temptation. They've sort of fallen asleep in their whatever obsessions and passions. And now, as I said, I'm looking at this for the first time. We've got very much the same thing here. We just don't see the devil figure. Apparently this is bindweed that is around them, so that sounds like an appropriate plant for the devil. But I really like that energy. So in the Lover's card, it was a little fawn, and now we have this Ceranosis, or whatever his name is. Okay. A tower is a tower is a tower. Don't know why we have a toad. Pretty classic tower, outside of any tradition. Here we've gone to like a more Egyptian star, so I don't know why they went off the pagan path there, unless I'm misreading it. More traditional star here, and same with this one. Okay, we're almost through now. We've got the moon. I don't know why this little box is here. The book didn't explain it, as I recall, so you'll just have to figure it out for yourself. I like that the moon is now the illusion, and so I'm not sure what's going on here. I have a feeling this is a nod to Nuit, which is again part of the Thoth Tarot myth, so maybe they were informed by that deck. And a gorgeous, gorgeous moon card with the crabs coming up. One crab coming up here. Sun card, I guess this is pagan do-it-yourself crafting. I like this because it's got this astrological signs around the sun. This is the baby on a horse that everyone hates, but for some reason, I don't hate this version of it. The horse is beautiful, the kid is cute, I like the glow right in front of the sun. And with the lyre here, I think it's a nod to like a sun god or Apollo or something like that. Not my favorite card in the deck because babies on horses, but if you gotta have one, that's the one to have. Okay, then we have, this is the Judgment card. Here we call this one Karma, and there is a lot going on. There is birthing and dying and rising up our souls into eternity, and the Lord and the Lady again. And like I said, this deck has got a lot going on in some of these major cards. Here is just called Rebirth, and I think it's a nod to the baby on the horse. Okay, last card, the World card. Okay, just sort of floating out there in space. I'll save my favorite for last. This is probably the one card in the Druid craft I'm not really loving, because I think it's because it has ascended from the planet, and it is such an earth nature based deck that this one just makes you sort of go, what, huh? And I wonder if they could have done something and still be on the ground. But my favorite one is this. I just kind of like it with the milky stars from the breasts and just the general vibe of it. And this is what I mean. What this card might have been better if you still see the earth and the nature and the world that she's transcending. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.